Welcome to Performance Anxiety Side Projects. This episode, I was fortunate enough to be handed an idea from Jason Thompson of Vast Robot Armies. I'm joined by Jason, Jordan Zederosny of Blinker the Star, Alan Epley of The Life and Times, and Kelly Scott from Failure. We have a roundtable discussion on the best and worst drummers in 80s hard rock and heavy metal. You may notice a few technical issues during this episode. I did. But the discussion was so much fun that I had to release it. Follow all of us on social media and enjoy Performance Anxiety Side Projects, the Drummers Roundtable. All right, so tonight on this special edition of the Performance Anxiety Podcast, we're joined by Jordan Zederosny of Blinker the Star, Alan Epley of The Life and Times, Jason Thompson of Vast Robot Armies, and Kelly Scott from Failure. Thank you guys so much. I hope we can do this more than once, as long as this doesn't go to shit real fast.
How could it?
All right, so I'm going to the whole idea of this show, as I was just explaining to you guys, is we're going to discuss 80s metal drummers, the three best and the two worst in everybody's opinion. And Kelly, you got your hand up. Yes.
Well, what exactly are we calling metal? Like, where's the cutoff?
Exactly, because I heard that there was...
This is a good question.
Hard rock was in there.
Yeah, it's like Motley Crue.
It changes my list.
Hard rock is in there.
Yes.
There's a broad brush we can paint with here, but, you know... and I say this because I'm defending my own picks now, I realize that I kind of strayed outside of metal for sure, because I was just like, all right, well, he's just a cool drummer. So, you know, hard rock. We'll just keep it kind of wide.
Okay.
Save my own ass.
Okay.
All right, so, and the only thing, since we have so many people on the line, as we go on, if we end up interrupting each other, and we just lost some... Oh, Jason, where the hell did Jason go?
I'm here.
Oh, there you go. You just became an avatar there for a second.
He just figured out that he's got a bunch of rock drummers. He's out of here.
I'm not going on my phone and doing new research at all.
All right. The only thing with so many people on the line is that it's real easy for the audio to drop out if we interrupt each other a lot. So that's the only issue that I usually have.
Okay.
So, all right. So let's start with the best drummers. And I'm just kind of going to go how I see you guys on my screen. And since this was Jason's idea, let's start with you.
Okay. All right. So I started with just thinking metal, and then I just kind of branched out into drummers that I really dug from that era who played what I would consider hard rock, but it might kind of get out there a bit more. So I'm totally going to get yelled at for this. Will Calhoun from Living Colour.
Okay.
Rad drummer. That is not a heavy metal band. It has harder edge to it, so I might have kind of blown this whole thing right off. See?
Bending your own
I'm getting a head shake on there.
They weren't a real band. They were a project. A bunch of guys.
All right.
Money playing.
That's fair.
I think we have to get
second pick.
I would consider him a funk or R&B drummer way before rock.
All right, Kelly, I think you're going to have to get a little closer to your mic.
Just in the, I mean, let's define a rock drummer. Your hands have to move above this position. Like anywhere here or above makes you rock. Anywhere below,
all right,
cashing in on what was making money in the 80s.
These visuals are awesome for a podcast, by the way.
Yeah, they're important.
All right, Will Calhoun.
That's the bullshit one. No, I got a replacement. I can replace him if I need to. I got a couple guys on the bench.
Great.
All right, next one. Hard to say this one, but he played some cool shit. Greg Bissonette.
Again, jazz drummer.
Jazzbo. Nice.
Jazz drummer. Come on, guys. What the fuck?
He had hair. He had hair. Mid-shoulder blade.
They were implants.
He's ball. Cue ball.
Come on.
Wow.
All right.
This was family feud. That would be strike two, and your family would be pissed.
Oh, my goodness.
Let's just see where this ends up. All right. So then last pick, Mike Borden, Faith No More.
You're still stretching the heavy metal. Faith No More is. He's a great drummer.
Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
I didn't know Mike Borden's name until the 90s. I don't consider
Me too. Yeah.
Therefore, he did not exist.
All right.
Let's keep going, and you can open up a web tab and research while we loop around with
All right.
talking about.
All right.
I'll go back to the kids' table, and I'll come back in a bit.
All right. So next up, I'm going to go to the next square. And Jordan, who do you have?
Okay, well, I'll give you two versions of my top three. One is where it's a bit looser, with where I consider something hard rock and not metal, and then the other list is sort of a pure. I don't think you'll have too many objections to these three guys.
Okay.
Maybe you'll be a little surprised. I don't know. Number one is Alex Van Halen.
Yes.
Great drummer.
I think I think the drummers on my list are kind of what I would consider stylists. And his style is playing exactly in sync with his brother. And that's a style unto itself because Edward's such an original. So I put Alex at the top of the list. This is only in the first 3 years of the 80s he was active, but I'm going to say Phil Rudd.
Yeah.
Back in Black was
No Phil
1980.
Rudd.
Unbelievable drumming, and on the follow-up as well. And I think he played on Flick of the Switch too, which I think is a great record. Not as great as the other ones, but certainly a lot of fun. And then if we're going to keep it to sort of metal, I gotta say I like Tommy Lee. So I'm going to put him out there. Now, where I would scratch Tommy Lee if the category was a bit broader and including what I consider hard rock, I'm going to put Tony Thompson in there, because that record to me kind of came off as a hard rock record, even though it really is like a funk record with outrageous drum sounds and production and stuff. The Power Station record.
Power Station, so that makes him rock as anything.
Yeah, so that's sort of, I had like Tommy Lee Slash, but honorary mention to Dave Lombardo. So those are my top.
All right, Kelly, let's go with you, but you got to get closer to your mic.
All right. I'm going to start with Vinny Appice.
Vinny Appice.
Nice. I was just thinking about him today.
And these aren't in like any kind of order, but definitely Vinny Appice. And then I would have to say Clive Burr for sure. I think Clive Burr was essentially a really great punk rock drummer that learned how to play. And he had a wicked fast right hand. And then, honorable mention goes to Nico McBrain. Because the follow-up to Clive's last record.
I had a feeling Nico would make an appearance tonight.
Yeah, he could have been more than an honorable mention, but I went and saw him play a couple of years ago, and he's not holding up too well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's kind of like a weird drunken uncle.
Well, did you ever listen to the Listen with Nico? He's been doing that for a while.
Did Vinny play on Mob Rules? Did Vinny play on Mob Rules?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did all the Dio stuff. Anything where Dio was singing with another band.
Stand Up and Shout, like the first Holy Diver record?
Yeah.
That record still sounds like really meaty. I think it was Martin Bird.
He even played in Rainbow for a hot second.
Yeah.
I think Cozy Powell quit for a minute, and then Vinny came in, and then I think Cozy came back.
Cozy was great too, though. And he played on the Whitesnake records.
Oh yeah.
But I mentioned Lars earlier being a crappy drummer. Master of Puppets and Below, the drum parts on those records are like some of the best metal parts.
I agree.
Ever. Like he had a style unto himself, and I don't know what drugs he's doing during that era, but he should have stayed on.
I think we'd all agree.
Maybe great editing.
Maybe. All right, Alan Epley, let's go with your picks for your top three.
Well, mine are more stay in the metal vibe of what we were talking about. It doesn't go into funk where Jason was going and all his other. He's trying to take it into other places he wasn't supposed to.
And wherever Jordan was going was
fucked it up. So I have several here. I have to, since the fathers of metal, you would call Led Zeppelin, and it's pretty obvious. John Bonham, he's a very special musician all the way around. For me, he represents the best of the best, and kind of gives everybody their chops.
But was he more 70s than 80s though?
Oh, was it supposed to be 80s? Okay, so
Yeah.
Okay, so I've already fucked it up.
See, man, you and Jason, jeez.
So here's what I would say: Tommy Aldridge,
Yes.
for his work with Ozzy,
Yes.
and Black Oak, Vinnie Paul. Great metal drummer, but you got to love Pantera because it works very well with them. That's my thing. I love Pantera. And then just for the Still the Night record, Ainsley Dunbar, fucking great.
Oh, yeah. He also played on the first Ozzy record.
Ainsley did?
Yeah. They did the demos for free for Ozzy. Him and Bob Dave.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
But I know he got caught with China Cantner trying to get into her pants, I think, on the Starship tour. For real.
Who wasn't?
Well, I don't know. Maybe Grace and Paul. Yeah.
Well,
They were
maybe. That was, weird, weird family.
Apparently there's some shit going down where Ainsley got kind of blacklisted from that. But so he was with Starship and all that for a long time. So that's what I got.
Plot tour with Striper opening up.
Oh yeah?
Man.
I got pissed on by an endangered Florida Black Panther while waiting at the mall across the street for the show to open up.
Oh my gosh. Jason, do you want a second go at this, or do you want to stick with what you had?
I'm going to stick with what I had because anything I would have picked is not going to get within that list, or at least it would have been picked off already. The only one I was thinking, actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'll throw a couple out. Why not?
All right.
I'm just going to go further down that rabbit hole. Yeah. All right. So obviously everyone's kind of nailed off like some pretty stellar drummers. So I'm going to kind of go in a tier slots below that, but have had an impact and are very much in the metal spectrum. So Kelly, did you say Vinny piece? Or did you say Carmine?
Yeah.
You said Vinny, so the Dio drummer.
Yeah, I've always liked Vinny way more than Carmine.
Well, I got to put his older brother in there just because of all the shit that he was doing in the 80s anyways, but he's still a good drummer, considering he started in like 1968.
Yeah.
So Carmine a piece in there.
All right. I'll accept that.
He did the Blue Murder album, and he did a bunch of other like really shitty 80s stuff.
I love that Blue Murder album.
I liked elements of it.
Honest to God, I listened to it 2 days ago.
Blue Murder's John Sykes, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Like John Sykes' guitars.
And Tony Franklin.
Oh.
Tony Franklin.
That's right.
Yeah, he made the Firm sound weird, or he made Jimmy sound weird. Oh.
I loved him with Roy Harper. This is becoming a bass show now. With Roy Harper, The Firm, Blue Murder, everything. I love that guy.
Rod Bod.
Yes.
I think he played with Rod Bod on his solo stuff.
Oh, man.
You heard about Rod Stewart, too, right? I mean, the whole legend of... apparently they pumped his stomach and found 2 gallons of sperm in his stomach. Can you imagine how much sperm that is?
God.
I remember that. I was like, oh, yeah.
That's about as much as Kelly just lost while we were waiting for him on the show.
That's going to take up half my coffee table in volume. Like, what?
You know how long it would take to get 2 gallons of fucking sperm from...
You could take that back to the store in the 80s. Get like $10.
It's a lot of work, man.
That dedication.
Big night.
That is. All right. Well, I'm going to throw out a couple guys, and you guys tell me what you think, because not being a trained musician and not knowing anything about, but just listening, I actually liked the Mike Borden pick. I guess maybe because I love the album that I remember him from is Gar Samuelson. And how can you not pick Mick Shrimpton? Mick Shrimpton had to learn the entire back catalog of everything Spinal Tap had to do from the early 60s up until that movie came out in like 80, 81. So I'm including Mick Shrimpton.
Right. Yeah. Covered
Right.
a lot of material.
So it takes a special drummer to be able to do that kind of range. All right.
Yeah.
So, Kelly doesn't look convinced. All right, so let's move on to the worst.
I actually don't even know who that guy is.
Mick Shrimpton is the drummer from Spinal Tap.
Is he one of the 8 drummers that dies?
He tripped on his drums and died. But he was actually the guy who played him was actually a real drummer who's, from what I understand, fairly decent, but I don't remember his real name. All right, so let's move on to worst.
Actually, the guy that had to learn all.
I have no idea what Kelly said. I can't hear him. All right, so we're moving on to worst. And Jason.
Yeah.
Let's go
My
on.
computer's going to fucking die. And I realized I have no plug here for it, which is awesome. Okay. I'm going to throw out my shitty drummer before I drop off from this whole thing that I kind of plotted out. So I don't like to speak ill of the dead, but I kind of went for an overrated perspective. And I got to say, Eric Carr was pretty fucking overrated as far as drummers go.
Yeah.
He's dead, and that does suck, and I get that, but he couldn't follow any tempos. You watch any live shit,
Yeah.
and he's tagging on 5 to 10 BPM every fucking song, man.
Yeah.
Being dead's no excuse.
Eric Sick is much better.
Dare you?
It was kind of the same thing. I think the requirement for that band was just look good in your body.
In your wig, yes, it's true. Can you play in boots?
Yeah.
Big boots and hair. Yeah, fair enough.
All right, so that's one. Do you have a second garbage drummer?
Oh. Yeah.
These were your requirements, don't forget. 3 good, 2 bad.
I know. Well, I had Lars in there for sure, as anyone kind of would at that point. I'm just low-hanging fruit, though, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm forgetting his name, and I know the band. The drummer from Slaughter, who had all the drums with all of the.
Los Elias? He's a great
Yeah.
guy. He plays in the Blue Man in Vegas.
Is he?
He's a badass.
All right. I wasn't a huge fan back then.
So he, there was the drum that said "Space for Rent" behind him. So he's always had room.
Right.
All right, well, I don't know what to tell you, Jason. You're bombing at your own show here.
Yeah.
All right. Jordan.
Yeah, so I say we got to take Lars off the table, because if we're talking 1980s, he doesn't start really sucking for another few years. I don't think. I think he's
Yeah, it sucks a little bit on Injustice for All.
Let me tell you who really sucks.
I can't
I
wait.
found it really, really hard to think, because this is an era of when the producers kind of took over the records, and if the drummer couldn't cut it, they'd bring in someone who could. So you don't hear you hear bad drum sounds that perhaps are alienating to our modern ears. But if you go back to most of those metal albums, everything's at least competent, mostly. And I was going to pick on Ricky Rocket, but you know what? The fucking guy played exactly the parts that should have been played on those songs on the Poison record. So here's who truly sucks, is Abaddon from Venom.
Oh, interesting.
In the band.
I
I'm
can't
not
argue
saying
that.
it's fun to listen to, because it is kind of fun to listen to Venom once in a while. It puts a smile on the face. But I mean, he's not even close to he doesn't care. It's it's the thrill of going this.
I'm in a band.
This is our reaction to metal, and we just don't care how close it is to acceptable. And so I thought that was a pretty safe pick anyway.
All right. Was that one pick or was that 2?
Well, I couldn't think of anyone else. I thought of how Ricky Rocket used to bother me until
Yeah,
until just the look of him playing those parts and stuff. But then, if I hear Talk Dirty to Me on the radio, I definitely turn it up, which I never do. but Hair Nation on Sirius once in a while, and it's fun. So I don't want to pick on him.
Okay, so we got at least one out of Jordan. All right, Kelly, who are your two?
Well, I'm going to stick with Lars.
I'm good with that.
He sucked in the 80s, though.
Yeah, I mean, he just sucks. I'm going to blame any good recording from that guy on whoever engineered him.
You know what I saw, Kelly, today was Dave Lombardo sat in for Lars once with Metallica, and it's the craziest sounding thing because it doesn't sound like Metallica anymore.
I heard about that. I haven't heard it, but...
And Lombardo is dead on. You can watch it. They play two old songs, and just YouTube it later, and you'll see like James is the one who's slightly out. Now he seems like so whip tight when he plays with Lars because he kind of compensates for what Lars does, and he knows when he's going to kind of hit late or early. And with Dave Lombardo, they're playing these old Metallica songs, and Dave's just like right on, and he's just so on, like right where he should be. And you can see like the bass player and Kirk going like, oh, this is cool.
Yes.
Looking like, what the fuck's going on here, you know?
Who else? Steven Adler.
Oh, okay.
I will give one caveat. He's a terrible drummer. But when he played with Guns N' Roses, something happened that made him the most badass band in the world. And I never fully realized that until, after he was out of the band, I'd seen them several times. And then we went back and saw them, I think it was like last year when they played Dodger Stadium. And a couple years ago. He came up and played like 4 songs. And the drummer they have now definitely plays circles around him. But the moment Adler sat in with the band, they became that whole machine that, just talking you totally crazy.
Okay.
I a big part of that record, like he kind of had this like, it sounded like he was trying to play like the guy from Aerosmith.
Yeah.
A little sloppier, but it kind of worked with Izzy's sloppiness, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No,
that was like a weird magic little brew that only lasted for 3 years,
It was total magic. Like all of them were so out in the perfect way with one another that it created something that you never.
Like just picture the beat of the main introductory riff of Rocket Queen, that dunk, just that's the kind of thing that kind of is working so well. I don't know. My other guy, Fred Torrey from Cinderella. Always replaced.
Going back to in the 80s, drummers that were being replaced, he was replaced on his first 3 pivotal records.
Okay.
Cozy Powell.
That blues.
Okay.
That's where I actually got the first idea to become a professional drummer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I can beat that guy.
Yeah. And that guy's getting money.
Yeah.
All right. So that's kind of like 2.5, I guess.
That was great.
More.
You got more?
More. I picked up 2 for anybody else.
All right. Well, let's get Alan's and we'll circle back to you. All right. So, Alan, who have you picked as your garbage drummers of the 80s?
Well, Jordan hit it on the head with Ricky, but because he was like notoriously terrible to track with, and I think the sessions took for fucking ever.
Yeah.
But I saw him last year with Cheap Trick and Poison, and Cheap Trick was opening for Poison out of Tinley Park in Chicago or something.
That sounds backwards.
It was something don't sound right. However, you know how Poison has like 3 or 4 hits?
Yep.
No, they have like 15.
Yeah.
And you go, I mean,
wow.
There was 18,000 fucking people there too. I mean, it was a show. And he's learned how to play. So Ricky was at the top of my list. The other one is Dave Holland. He's dog shit from Judas Priest.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's well known that Simon Phillips, in fact, recorded on many of those records
Right.
for him. They were like, play dumb, but good. And so that's not to say Dave Holland has a certain kind of Phil Rudd vibe to him, which I get, and he's got a good pocket, I guess. I've never seen him live. So those are my two.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm guessing. And now he's going to be 69 or something, right? Or he's got to be old. I mean, is Dave Holland still alive?
Yeah.
I don't know. Jason's looking stuff up. You can look that up for us.
And then the other thing I was going to say is, what's his name from Mike Portnoy. He's a great drummer, quote unquote. But there's too many wrestling shoes and gloves and all this, and too many double kicks going on, and it's too much.
I accidentally saw him play about 8 months ago.
Yeah, and he's great. He's clearly great. I'm just like, it's like technical was like.
And yeah, it was like, it was not my crowd at all, and it was like an artist whose name I've forgotten. And he's something in the Dream world, the Dream Theater spin-off world. And Portnoy, the way they had the kit sort of angled, it was sort of like, this guy's important. And I was like, oh yeah, I've heard his name. And I was friends with the sound guy. That's why I went to the show. But the reverence of this audience.
They were like, oh my God, this guy.
This is, you don't understand. It's this. My
what you're seeing.
And the way he sort of presented himself.
Okay.
I tend to agree with that.
All right. So, well, that brings up a question for me. Since we're talking about the 80s and guys with these enormous kits, a lot of programming and all was going on in these. Does that taint any of the answers here, where it was a lot of programming happening?
You said taint and you said big kits, which is another name for little kits. Big trucks.
So does that influence you guys anyway? Like let's say like Neil Peart, enormous, amazing, talented drummer, but a lot of pre-programmed stuff in his shows. An enormous kit around him.
That's just fun.
Yeah, that's sort of it.
Once. I mean,
Yeah, different monster.
it's a different monster altogether, and that's not metal.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Category, really.
It's not just look at me for the sake of like having a bad childhood. He's actually playing an instrument.
Right. So
on any nonsense.
Tom Sawyer might have been the last minute where Rush were considered heavy metal, because they kind of were at 2112. Like,
yeah,
that stuff was pretty spiky,
Yeah.
For sure.
They stay heavy through signals. Heavy, like when you listen to it, you're like, whoa, this is heavy.
Yeah.
Sure, but it's like he got rid of that sort of crunchy tone for the most part, and the sound of the Police was coming in. I mean, I love his drumming in the early '80s and those records. That's super cool.
Permanent Waves and
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, so I like.
No one noticed. Jason's been gone for like 5 minutes.
I know.
Jason who?
Oh.
Just kidding.
We'll edit that out later. This is where it was tough for me because it's hard for me to pick out who's a good drummer, who's a bad. More, it's hard for me to pick out who's a bad drummer because I'm just listening, and if I like a song, I like a song. It's just, it's. I don't know. It's not easy for me to always tell who's in time, who's behind the beat, who's ahead, and so obviously there's Lars. I obviously had to pick that. I was debating about this because the guy changed because he lost an arm. Rick Allen had to have a whole new set. And I would.
First three Def Leppard records with arm.
And I agree. Which is kind of why I was a little afraid to bring him up because that's kind of like picking on the handicapped, and you don't want to do that.
Honestly,
I put him in the good category.
Okay.
I do.
All right, cool.
Yeah.
And then the last is Joe Mama Besser because the dude blew up on stage.
A lot of Spinal Tap.
Exactly. Those would be my worst drummers. Best and worst are Spinal Tap.
The Lord.
So that's my knowledge of drums. It's.
I was going to throw in there was Robert Sweet. He's kind of dog shit. I saw Stryper with Hurricane, in Kansas City when they were throwing Bibles.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hot one.
That seems kind of counterintuitive to the message they're trying to get across.
Well, they were all, yeah. So, actually, he was terrible. He was fucking dog shit.
Really?
His time.
I saw Hurricane open up for Motley Crue, and that drummer's really good.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, just
Apparently the guys in Hurricane are like Carlos Cavazzo's brother and Rudy Sarzo's brother. Yeah, guitarist and like.
Jason's in corner now.
Oh, wow.
It's Lou Graham and Dice.
Lou Graham's in the hospital or some shit?
Oh, yeah, he was. Just recently. I don't have any updates on him, though.
Well, I need you.
Midnight.
I will get in touch with him, his and or his people. All right, there's two guys I wanted to throw out there because I didn't hear them on anybody's list, and I don't know if you guys consider them good or garbage. One, a friend of mine, I told him what we were doing tonight, and he said, throw out Andy Gallion from Death Angel. Because their first album came out, he was 14 years old when they put out their first album.
I remember that.
That doesn't count.
That doesn't count? Okay. And what about Dean Castronovo?
Seriously talented drummer.
He did everything on Shrapnel, every Shred album that came out on like Metal Blade and Shrapnel, the solo stuff, like Marty Friedman, Jason Becker, Tony McAlpine, all that stuff.
So, Skips now, or one of those things?
He might be. I've seen him on something recently, but honestly, I don't remember what it was.
He's pretty soulless, but he's like a glitch.
He's mechanical. He keeps up with the guys who they're actually trying to feature.
That'd be like calling.
Yeah, there's a whole category of those guys that are like a big chunk of the drummers that we're talking about, and they're sort of like, we respect their technical ability, but they don't turn us on in a musical way.
Okay.
So we just put them off to the side and don't really acknowledge them in a way. Like, it's kind of boring to even acknowledge.
Okay.
Herman the German Rarebell.
Herman's the German, that's right. Scorps.
I love the Scorpions, but he's a really bad drummer.
I've heard that. I've heard he's a boozy.
Yeah.
Boozy Susie.
With,
Is he the guy? Have they had the same drummer forever?
yeah, they have some local guy, an LA guy plays for them.
I like when I listen to Blackout, all that kind of stuff sounds great.
That's Herman Rarebell. He was their drummer up until.
Yeah, he's a good drummer. I like his pocket. I like those simple fills and that shit. It doesn't take much. And Blackout is the record, I think, that's pretty banging. That's the one with There's No One Like You, right? And that song.
Okay.
That song fucking rules.
I like it.
Yeah.
Does anybody have anybody else they want to throw out for?
Well, you know what, I was just thinking that kind of drumming that we were just talking about on Blackout, maybe like 2 years before or 2 to 4 years before, whoever the guy in UFO was kind of doing that same sort of pockety, but on top kind of thing, which was really cool, which was like, the drumming was like pulling itself out of like the really behind sort of slower beats and was like, the new wave of heavy metal is happening, these quicker tempos, and like there was guys who could do that artfully that were kind of part of that, like, yeah, let's just make the rhythms a little snappier, you know.
It's Andy Parker.
Is that who it is?
Yeah.
Like from Lights Out up until like 78, 79, those are really cool, I thought.
He played from 68 to 83.
Good God.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Him and Pete Way was the bass player.
Pete Way.
Right. And Phil Moog's retiring from singing after this little. One of the guys died on tour.
Oh my God!
On this like farewell tour, died in the middle of it.
Well, his timing couldn't have been better.
Yeah, really. That guy at least got to do it after.
Farewell.
Old Sib Hashin died on a boat too. I want to say he was drumming, doing some Boston or something, or no, wasn't doing Boston tunes. He was doing something else, but like died. Had a heart attack on the way to fucking go, I guess.
Good God.
I mean, if you're thinking about it before it happens and you have to choose your method of death, chances are guys like that are going to say on stage.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother episode.
I'd rather die in my sleep.
I think I'm going to go with Kelly on that one.
Yeah.
All right, guys, look, I don't want to keep you all night. This has been a blast, and we already lost Jason. So I want to ask you guys what you guys are up to lately. Jordan, I know you've got some stuff going on. Give me some updates on bands, albums, tours, anything like that. Jordan, let's start off with you.
I just finished 4 shows playing with Blinker the Star. That was really fun. That was the first time in 6 years I'd played, so that was great.
That's awesome.
And then we put out a record a month ago. That's cool, but I've started a new one. You know, I leave them behind fairly cruelly and quickly and move on to the next thing, really.
Where can people find the album, man?
Bandcamp, iTunes, wherever. Yep.
Awesome. Careful with your magic.
That's it.
It's great, man. I love it. I've been listening to it. I have to buy it, actually. I'm going to admit that right now. I've just been, listening to it probably illegally or something.
Oh, that's fine, too.
Jordan and I are working on a record together right now also.
Yeah. Actually, Kelly played on a record with Jason's band, Vast Robot Armies, and we're mixing and adding sort of final stuff right now. And it was really fun to have Kelly's drums in front of me every day working on that, and I still have them. Great.
And I think
you freak out, Kelly, when you hear it, man.
They were just on the on my podcast. Alan, what are you working on?
Life and Times is writing, but Shiner, my old band, just went in the studio and we put together 7 songs. So we're nearing the mixing phase with Shiner. It's very strange for us. We haven't been together really since like 2003.
Oh wow.
And so it's very strange to start writing after we were doing all these like reunion shows. We'd like put out a vinyl and then do some shows, and then kind of getting back to writing is very strange, with these dudes. Yeah. But it was also very normal and natural. It was really great. And then I have a little 2-piece I'm doing with this drummer, Ian Prince. The band, he was in a band called Houston and The Story of the Sea, but it's a 2-piece thing. So it's bass and drums. And I just kind of loop a bunch of shit. And then, it's actually really great. Super repetitive, and it's great. I love it.
That sounds like something I would actually get really...
Pretty catchy.
And when do we get a new Life and Times record?
Not soon enough, my friend. We took some time off too. So we've written 2 songs that we love. After like not being able to like find a thing after the last record, we're just like, like
about it, yeah.
You know what I mean? And so we finally found it, and we've written 2 songs that we fucking love. And so, but they're like 9 minutes long. Each of them are both, so we're gonna have to cut them down a little bit.
Awesome. The last record hit me really hard. I thought it was fantastic.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It means a lot.
And I'm a new fan of Life and Times. Jason turned me on to you guys, and I've just been absorbing everything I can. It's fantastic. I absolutely love it. And I need to get you on this show to talk about Life and Times and what you guys are up to. If you're interested in doing that, we'll hook that up after this show. We'll get in touch and we'll work that out.
I like it.
Awesome. Kelly, what are you working on besides drums for Vast Robot Armies?
I haven't been doing a whole lot. I'm about to shoot a couple new failure songs that I'm going to start getting it together and going out and working at some drum parts for.
Maybe we could do another one of these and change it from best and worst drummers to maybe overrated and underrated bands of the 90s for the next one. If you guys are interested in doing another one, let's get it hooked up and we'll figure out another topic because I had a blast.
That's wild and sort of like, that would be like an intense discussion because I think it would be a little easier you'd have to almost have like a little bigger, the list would have to be a bit bigger because we can really think of a bunch off the top of the head right now.
We don't have to, we don't have to narrow it down to 3 and 2. We can do top 10.
Really interesting.
All right. Well,
that big, yeah.
Well, let's.
My blood is boiling already.
Marcy's playground can die. All those motherfuckers are dead to me. Sex and Candy, so upsetting for me. I just like gets me going.
It's giving Alan the vapors.
I've got 10 minutes on that alone.
Yeah.
Well, we'll be in touch. We'll work on the parameters for the next show, and when everybody's available, and we'll get something else out going. Guys, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, it's great to see Jordan, Kelly, and Jason again. Alan, it was great to meet you.
Absolutely.
And
Great to meet you too, Alan. And
Absolutely, all the way around. Kelly, Jordan, Mark, thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. All right, gentlemen, have a good evening. I'm going to finish my beer, and then I'm hitting the sack.
cheers. Good night, guys.
Good night,
Cheers.
guys.